The human attention span is at an all-time low and it's only getting worse. Most people can't even sit through a movie intentionally designed to be as entertaining as possible without checking their phone. Scriptwriters are literally being told to re-describe a plot multiple times throughout a movie to account for the fact that everyone watching the film is distracted. If you can't even sit through a movie without getting distracted, good luck trying to focus on your work for long enough to get anything done. But what if we can prevent our attention span from turning to mush? What if we can build a bulletproof attention span and laser focus? What if each year our attention span and focus gets better, not worse? Each year we find it harder and harder to focus, yet most of us require focus to build our businesses, to study, or to work to actually achieve our goals. This means that each year it gets harder and harder for you to achieve your goals. If we continue to demolish our attention span year after year, we make it almost impossible to achieve our goals. But there is a way of fixing your attention span so that each year your attention span gets better and better. And this means that each year it gets easier and easier for you to achieve your goals. And each year, as your attention span gets better and everyone else's attention span gets worse, that gap keeps widening and widening, and you give yourself a big competitive advantage. The way we fix our attention span is we fix our reward system so that we get rewarded for focusing, not for being distracted. First of all, we need to identify our distraction dopamine. Then we have to remove our distraction dopamine. And finally, we have to install focus dopamine. Right now, most of us can receive dopamine from either focus or distraction. Right now, you could either get dopamine from things like recording content, like I'm doing right now, working on your business, or working out. But you can also get dopamine for scrolling TikTok or scrolling social media or binge watching Netflix. You can get dopamine from both activities, but right now we're going to want to gravitate towards these distraction dopamines. And what we're doing is we're reinforcing ourselves to be distracted and have a worse attention span. See, the way our reward system works is that we take an action and we receive a reward in our brain. Usually this comes in the form of dopamine. And as a response, we relate that action we did to the reward and we start to crave to do that action again. And that craving triggers action, and we go through this cycle over and over again. This reinforces the behaviors that we're currently doing, and the behaviors that give us the most reward are the behaviors that we crave the most. And if they're the behaviors that we crave the most, they're the behaviors that we do the most. Right now, the distraction dopamine is what we want to do the most because it's rewarded the most. For a lot of us right now, we love to scroll or we love to binge watch. And what happens is when we do that action, we get a huge hit of dopamine. We get a massive, massive reward. It feels amazing. And as a consequence of it feeling amazing, we crave to do it. We associate this action with feeling amazing. And because we start to crave to do it, we do the behavior again. And we continually reinforce this cycle of wanting to do this behavior. Problem is, this behavior is distraction. This behavior is destroying our attention span. I mean, I'm sure a lot of us have noticed that consuming a lot of short form content has not been good for our focus. On the other hand, for focus dopamine, the action you take, things like working on your business, it's going to produce a relatively normal level of reward, a relatively normal level of dopamine. As a consequence, you're going to have a relatively normal craving. In fact, you're not really going to have much of a craving at all, which means you're less likely to want to do this action, and you're less likely to reinforce these behaviors. This feedback loop from focus dopamine is a lot weaker than our feedback loop we have for distraction dopamine. The reason for that is if we compare focus dopamine to distraction dopamine itself, focus dopamine really only provides one context per hour, one thing that you're focusing on, single task focus, whereas distraction dopamine, you could be focusing on hundreds of contexts per hour. The average person scrolls every 8 seconds. That means over the course of an hour, you're seeing 450 different pieces of context, 450 different contexts per hour versus one. That's a big difference. When you compare the amount of reward you receive for focused dopamine compared to distraction dopamine, you'll notice that focused dopamine produces a relatively normal amount of dopamine, whereas distraction dopamine produces a lot. It feels amazing. It feels really good, of course. These algorithms that you constantly swipe know exactly what you like, exactly what you want, and these algorithms are designed to keep you on the platform as long as possible. How do they do that? They give you stuff you enjoy. They give you stuff that makes you want to stay on there. They know very well how to give you a lot of dopamine in the moment. If you spend your time receiving focused dopamine, focusing on one context per hour, then you're going to have a pretty strong attention span. You know how to focus on one individual task for a long period of time. If you spend your time on distraction dopamine, you're going to have a really shocking attention span. being really well rewarded for switching contexts nearly 1,000 times per hour, this is going to result in a horrendous attention span because it's rewarding you and training you to want to constantly switch tasks and seek novelty and find the thing that's the most enticing in the moment. Because relatively you receive way more reward for distraction dopamine than you do for focus dopamine, as a consequence, your default behavior is to avoid focus dopamine and your default behavior is to do distraction dopamine. Because of the way you've reinforced your reward system, you're gonna have a burning desire for this distraction dopamine, and you're gonna be completely indifferent to doing focus dopamine. In fact, you're probably going to want to avoid it. So the first thing we need to do is identify the distraction dopamine. Find the things in our life right now which are giving us a huge amount of reward for context switching, for changing tasks, because these are the things that are absolutely destroying our attention span. For most of us right now, this is scrolling, this is social media, this is a lot of short form stuff. This is providing us a huge amount of context and a huge amount of dopamine, and this is making it very, very hard for us to focus. Next we need to do is remove distraction dopamine. Now that we know the things that are in our environment that are doing nothing but ruining our attention span, our goal is to get rid of this, because right now we're gravitating towards these activities. These are our default activities, and as a consequence, over a long time horizon, you're just tanking your attention span. After 10 years of this, you are not going to be able to focus on a single thing. I'm very concerned about the long-term cognitive function of everyone who's consuming a lot of this stuff. If we can completely remove this distraction dopamine, then our brain has to default to the focus dopamine. Our brain seeks reward. It seeks to feel good. And if it can't get it from cheap distraction dopamine, it has to get it from the focus work. It has to get it from the things that are moving us towards our goals. Because you're going to start running through this reward system reinforcement, and you're going to find that you really start craving the work. You really start craving the focus dopamine. The reason for that isn't that you're producing more dopamine for these activities. It's just that there's less other things in your environment that feel better. If you just finished a 3-course meal, you're absolutely stuffed, and then I gave you a plate of sardines and Brussels sprouts and said, here you go, here's dessert. Guess what you're gonna do? You're gonna laugh at me and say there's no way I'm eating that. However, if I gave you that same plate of Brussels sprouts and sardines, but you hadn't eaten all day, you would absolutely devour it. You would love it. But that isn't because there's anything different about the plate of food. It's that compared to being extremely hungry, eating a plate of Brussels sprouts and sardines feels really good. However, compared to eating that 3-course meal, Brussels sprouts and sardines, it doesn't feel very enticing. If we don't have this distraction dopamine, we only have focused dopamine, then what happens is that we feel relatively very rewarded. We feel like this is a really, really amazing thing to do. And as a consequence, we associate feeling really good with the focused dopamine, and we do it more. And if we do focused dopamine more, we get more done, we become more productive. And guess what? It's probably gonna feel just as good as the scrolling or the binge watching, all of the distraction dopamine would feel, except at the end of it, you don't feel this regret of, oh my God, I just wasted my time and destroyed my attention span at the same time. Now that you've identified the distraction dopamine, you've removed the distraction dopamine, the last thing we have to do here is install focused dopamine. Now this is the goal achievement formula. If you're in the Modern Monk community, you will have seen this before. This is a very important formula. The formula states that for any goal you have, if you have the correct inputs or the correct set of actions, and you apply consistency over a long enough time horizon, you will achieve anything. You will achieve literally any outcome. Well, your focused dopamine needs to be your inputs. For any goal that you want to achieve, you have to directly align the focused dopamine you receive with the tangible inputs that are going to get you to your outcome. Now, this is incredibly important because if you don't align your focused dopamine with your inputs, then you can spend all day working, you can feel productive, but you're not going to get your goal. This is because you're rewarding false focus. If you decide, okay, my focused dopamine is going to be admin, I'm going to do a bunch of admin tasks, then assuming you've removed distraction dopamine, the admin tasks will give you a bunch of reward. The admin tasks will feel really good, and you'll start craving doing admin tasks, and you'll do more admin tasks, and you'll create this reward system reinforcement for doing admin. The problem is, if your goal is, okay, I want to grow my business, and your input is just doing a bunch of admin tasks, no matter how much consistency and time you apply to doing admin tasks, you're going to be stuck in the same spot, because these are not the inputs required to get you to your goal. We want to be rewarding real focus. So for example, if you're trying to build a YouTube channel, like I'm trying to do right now, then it would probably be a good idea to record some videos. Obviously, it would be a good idea to do that. So as a consequence, when you start recording videos, assuming you have no distraction dopamine, this is going to start feeling good. It's going to start feeling rewarding. You're going to get dopamine for this. As a consequence, you're going to start craving it. You're going to start associating the reward with doing that behavior. So you're probably going to start recording more videos, and you're going to go through this reinforcement loop where you record more and more videos and you feel good recording videos. So if my goal is to grow my YouTube channel, and I do the input of recording lots of videos and preferably getting better each time, and I apply consistency over time, I'm going to see YouTube growth, right? It just takes consistency and time. But this all comes back to removing the distraction dopamine in the first place, so we're not rewarding a terrible attention span. And then when we do install the focus dopamine, we're actually focusing on the things that are going to move us forward. Because otherwise it's just fake productivity. You're just pretending to be doing a lot of productive things, but you're getting nothing done. Productivity is only helpful if it helps you move towards a goal. So don't be that guy that spends all day at the desk and gets nothing done. Now, knowing your specific goal and finding the exact inputs required to get you there really isn't that hard. We solve this within the first hour within the Modern Monk community. Consistency and time, this is the hard one. For most people, this is the biggest bottleneck. A lot of you guys know what to do, but you struggle to execute consistently on this for a long enough time horizon to eventually get your goal. So if you're an online entrepreneur who wants support consistently executing on the needle moving activities to grow your business, then you can join the Modern Monk community. I'll leave a link in the description below for that. For everyone else, I have a video showing you how to become addicted to progress. So if you're interested in that, I'll leave it up on screen here. Thanks for watching. Cheers.